Hey, welcome to Plan 9 Crunch. I'm Doug Gibson, and we are here with Richard Rossi and Kelly Tabor, and they have created a movie called Lucy and the Lake Monster, which has had quite a bit of success. It's I wouldn't call it a children's movie. It's more of a drama and also a faith film about a little girl who's lost her mother, and she lives with Gramps, who's played by Richard, and she's in Port Henry, which is Lake Champlain, and there's a monster called Champ that she wants to discover and wants to provide proof for. And what I like about the movie is you use social media in it and show how that can actually grow and create more interest in things. But first of all, tell us about the history of Champ and Lake Champlain. And Kelly, you can also talk about your experiences growing up there. And also, Richard, you can chime in. Both of you.
Okay. Well, I grew up here in Crown Point, New York, and it borders Lake Champlain. And for years and years, ever since I was a little girl, there's always been stories about the Lake Champlain monster that people refer to it as Champ. And so a lot of people have seen it. A lot of people I know have seen it before. And a lot of people I don't know have seen it. There's lots of eyewitness accounts. And so as a little girl, I always looked for it because my dad had a cabin. We had a family cabin on the lake. And so we had a little boat. And so we were always out looking for Champ. And sometimes we'd hear stories of people seeing it. And I was like, oh, I wish it was me. I wish I could see it. And so Richard, I ended up being a school teacher, and I told students all the years, I taught third, fourth grade mostly. And I told my students stories of the Lake Champlain monster, and they were on the edge of their seats. I actually taught in South Carolina. I just retired after 32 years. So all the students that I've taught in North Carolina and South Carolina, they all know about the Lake Champlain monster because of the stories that I told. And they were always really excited to learn about it because kids love that sort of story.
My wife teaches third grade.
Oh, great.
Now, you guys co-authored a book, right? Of Lucy and the Lake Monster.
Yes, I think you have it.
We have it right here.
Yeah, it started as this book. I would be a guest at her class sometimes and play my guitar and talk to the kids. And I noticed when she told the Champ stories, in fact, this is Champ. I noticed when she told the Champ stories that the kids would just go crazy. They loved the stories. And some of the boys wanted me to let them know who would win in a fight between Champ and Nessie. But so they were all into it. And I had become a grandfather. And I was thinking I wanted to do a film about a grandfather and a grandchild. And I just had this light bulb go off. And I said, Kelly, your stories about when you were a little girl with Papa Jerry looking for Champ, I think this could make a great children's book and film. And my mind was extrapolating the marketing that cryptozoology type people might be interested. Kids would like it. We can put some, there's a message of faith in it. There's a kind of a theme Bible verse, Mark 9:23, I think is the reference. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him who believeth. And I thought Lucy could represent childlike faith in Champ, and the naysayers and bullier. And I just thought it could be kind of an allegory, the way C.S. Lewis would write stories, but they had an allegorical meaning about faith. And so I just thought it was, it's hard because you get creative ideas. You don't know if other people will think it's a good idea. But when they come, those ideas come. The idea is such a gift to me. It's like, when Jesus told the disciples they hadn't caught any fish, and he says, cast your nets on the other side to catch all this fish. When you catch that idea, it's like so exciting. But sometimes I'll get an idea in a dream or something, and I'll think it's brilliant, and a day or two go by and it doesn't seem quite as magical. But this idea seemed to grow as a really good idea. So I thought, I'm gonna see what Kelly was thought. So I called Kelly.
Yeah, he called me. He lives in California, so he called me. I'm only visiting in Crown Point right now. My parents are here. This is where I grew up. I actually live in South Carolina. And so Richard called me in South Carolina and he said, how would you like to write a co-author the children's book and film series with me called Lucy and the Lake Monster? And I was so excited. I was at that point in my life where I was getting ready to retire, and I've always enjoyed writing, the writing process and all that. And so I could not say no. What a wonderful opportunity. And I already knew Richard for years we've known each other. And so he's somebody that's very creative, intelligent, smart, someone who I can trust, and someone who's been through movies and books before that would know what to do. And so,
Definitely.
I mean, I could not say no. I was so excited to be honored to be asked to work with him. It's
Yeah, and we are just a great team because we have complementary gifts. She catches all my typos and grammatical errors, and then sometimes I have to tell her to loosen up with her grammar Nazi stuff because sometimes a character
Yes,
like Papa.
you tell her it's impossible to spell and write at the same time, okay?
Yeah, sometimes I'd had to tell her, this character is Papa is doesn't have a lot of schooling, and he's living in a cabin in a very hermetic life, so he might not talk perfectly. So we'd have those little discussions. So we balanced each other out quite well.
We had such a good time writing together. We did it long distance. And
Yeah.
so we would come together, and especially the editing process was so much fun too, because I'm used to correcting grammaticals mistakes and all this. And I had to make changes because I had never written a book before. And Richard, in his lovingly way, told me, we write sometimes how people talk. It's not always grammatically correct.
When we came up with grammar corrections, I had my list, which was, if you can picture like a napkin size paper with maybe 3 things. Then she got out her list of my grammatical errors, and I was like, oh, help me, Jesus.
10 pages. So he's like, here we go.
How long was the shoot? How long was the shoot for the movie?
Oh, the shoot was a month. Yeah, we were fortunate enough to get everyone up here for a month and worked really hard.
Ooh, did we ever?
Yeah.
I wore many hats.
Oh, a skeletal crew. Yeah. Kelly was craft services, assistant director, wardrobe.
And I had never done any of this before. This was my first time through, but I always liked organizing. And so it kind of came, some of it came natural for me, but some nights we would come back to my parents' house and we would just sit in the driveway exhausted, like not even getting out of the car.
Yeah, I had problems getting out of the car and walking in because I'd had several surgeries. I wasn't in great physical shape, and just it was very exhausting filming, but yet happy at the same time. We were also happy doing it.
Yes.
And it was like, we better help Richard make it out of the car. He's about ready to collapse.
And then we had to get ready for the next day. Everything had to be like.
It must have been 12, 13-hour days, right? Maybe.
Yes.
My parents' garage was turned into a prop warehouse.
This is what I find very interesting. I'm making an independent film, all right? The things you do and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, you probably recruited townspeople too to be in parts, right?
Oh, yes. We were very, very grateful and blessed that the town just rallied behind us. In fact, the local paper, the Press Republican, did a beautiful story about how we were
and the Sun.
We were in the Sun Community News. They did a story about how we were a blessing to the town and bringing attention to the town and even economic benefit to the town, and that let's all rally and help them. And I mean, we had people, we cast some of the key parts from local townspeople. In fact, we didn't have our bullies to pick on Lucy, and the way I got the bullies, people thought I'd lost my mind because we had a church, Lake Champlain Bible Church, were very kind to us and were our headquarters. They let some of our cast and crew sleep in Sunday school rooms and cots and keep our cameras there and have our meals there and everything. But I hadn't shown up for the morning meeting and the breakfast.
Where's Richard?
And there was a bit of a mutiny where people were upset because someone found out, well, he's down a couple blocks playing basketball on the street. And they thought, we've come here hundreds of miles and we're all here to work. And he's off playing basketball with kids. But Kelly, knowing me over 40 years, she knew what I was up to, right?
Yes, I knew exactly. I saw those same boys playing basketball the day prior. And so when I heard Richard was out playing basketball with the boys, I said, I know exactly what he's doing. And then suddenly Richard came in the building and he said, well, I've got the bullies for the bully scene.
I was eyeing these boys thinking, okay, this guy seems like he'd be more the natural leader. We'll make him the head bully in the scene. So these boys were fantastic. In fact, they won. Some of these boys that played the bullies won some awards at festivals for supporting actor and everything.
I'm so proud of them. They did such a good job. They were so excited. Can you imagine how they felt going back to their classmates at school and saying, we're going to be in a movie?
Oh, that'd be fascinating. In fact, I think he did a pretty good job, the chief bully there too. But he also had a husband and wife bully, right? They were quite.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And they were quite, I'm going to use the word unique, all right?
I love those.
Yeah, they were pretty, and they had not mercenary, I guess they had materialistic goals to use
Uh-huh.
Champ, right? More or less.
Yeah.
We
It was
created,
Beazle, Beamish, and
yeah,
Mercenary.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They
The
had
Beazle.
livable. They had names that were quite interesting.
Yeah, the name Beazle. There were a couple childhood things that scared me. I used to have a lot of night terrors, and I had psychiatric issues even as a kid. But I would have these night terrors, like shows that wouldn't scare any other kid, and I'd have these vivid nightmares and wake up. And but one of the things that scared me was there was a local show where I grew up, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and he had a puppet called Lady Elaine Fairchild, and for whatever reason, that puppet scared me. She had a big bulbous nose and a, big pink, red cheeks, and so the actress, I told her that, and she tried to have that Lady Elaine Fairchild look. But there was an episode of Charlie's Angels when I was a kid where it goes into a backstory for Jacqueline Smith being in an orphanage with this very abusive woman named Beamish, and.
Okay.
And Beamish locks her in the closet. It was an episode I think called The Seance. It was about it was almost like the Ed Wood film with the phony psychic. I think it was at
Night of the Ghouls. Night of the Ghouls.
Yeah, it was that kind of a thing. It was like about a phony psychic and they're conning people. And Beamish, when they hypnotized Jacqueline Smith, she remembers this Beamish lady locking her in the closet and taking her doll. So I had Beamish. And then Beazle came from I got that idea from the biblical Beelzebub,
Beelzebub,
which is another name for like the devil and everything. But
And
that
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies, Beelzebub means Lord of the Flies. But we met that couple. Kane and Leanne was at a film festival
in Buffalo.
Is it called Great Lakes Christian Film Festival,
yes.
I think? And it won an award for most creative indie film. And I was, as much as I, have been performing since I was a kid on the guitar and nightclubs and people think I'm a public person, I'm actually very much kind of feel like an introvert when I get in a crowd. So I was very much keeping to myself. And I was also worried about being judged because Kane and Lan critiques a bit of the phony televangelists and things. And I was, and I'd had some experience of Christians getting mad at me and saying you shouldn't even expose that. It makes Christians look bad. That whole Elmer Gantry aspect is bad. They didn't like Elmer Gantry because they felt like it was an attack on religion. And so I was kind of keeping to myself. But the woman that played Beazle, Lori was her name, and her husband, Dave, hosted the awards night. And she was such a lovely person in terms of being very friendly. And she pulled me out of my shell. And she was like, you are coming to dinner with us. You're going to go with our group and we're all going to a restaurant and it's our treat. Like, she was like, wouldn't let me get away with being like the wallflower at the film festival. She made sure I came with them to eat and everything. And Kelly and I were invited by them to this dinner.
Someday we will go back there. They have the best bread.
Yeah. And so they were in my mind, and it's funny how you cast things. There's a lot of times people you meet along the way, and her husband, Dave, is a lawyer, and they're both the opposite of their characters. They're both really
nice. I
think
they'd be the opposite, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really sweet Christian people. And
when we were writing the parts for that, I remember thinking about them, thinking they would be great. And he agreed too. He was thinking the same thing. It would be great if they played this part.
Yeah, and they did great. They
could practice their lines together, being husband and wife. They're together. So that would have been.
I have a question here. How was it shooting on the water? Did you have any troubles with that, or is everything smooth?
Oh, that was challenging, Doug. Very challenging. We had to have the cameraman on another boat beside our boat. Sometimes, if it was like a close-up, and say Papa's talking to Lucy, I could hold the camera and film on her. It was challenging.
Well, our DP also had a gimbal. To keep it stable.
Yeah.
And we had to walk out.
Yeah, it was tough. And then we had the drone. We were given a drone. Our DP, Daniel Burke, was given a drone as a gift, like because of his doing all this. He shot mission trips and he did a lot of things to help charitable and church causes and stuff. So someone says, you're doing such good work. I'm giving you this present of a drone. But we opened it literally on set. We'd never used it. And so we had to learn how to use it. And that's what got the famous shot of that landed us on Unexplained with Shatner.
I've seen the shot. It's interesting.
Yeah, that came from him putting that drone up there when little Lucy and I were out on the lake. But I love the drone shots, the aerial view of us in
Yeah.
the boat and everything. It's just, it added some production value when you're making a film for, micro budget. To that drone, to me, it was like, wow, this is a shot a few years ago we would have never been able to get.
Definitely. Now, it's won some awards. How do you market this? You start in film festivals, and then what do you do beyond that?
Well,
Social
we
media.
we were really incredibly blessed with the marketing, because I mean, if you Google Lucy and the Lake Monster, I can't believe like how many articles covered it and how many people wrote about it. I've been pretty fortunate to get like these breaks with my films, like weird publicity things happen. Like I made a film about my childhood idol, Roberto Clemente, who
We're
was
going to talk
baseball.
about that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the Pope, there was a campaign based on my film which focused on his faith to canonize him as a Catholic saint. So the Pope's, I got letters from the Pope and stuff like that. And so all of a sudden it was just made to order as a story that would go viral, as baseball player might be canonized as saint. So I got all this free publicity, and one of my Hollywood friends, who's a little more worldly, and, his mega budget films, he has to, get a publicist and give him like a, $20,000 a month retainer. He called me up cussing me out, like, because he was like, who is your effing publicist? I see your Clemente film about the Pope and all that. It's in the LA Times, it's in the Chicago Tribune, it's in the Washington Post. Who is your effing publicist? I said, God. He said, well, can I have his or her number? Because it was the same with Lucy, when this drone thing that happened. We filmed that a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, it wasn't discovered until 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps getting resurrected as a fresh story. Like it was on the front page of the paper in New York just a few months ago. And I don't know, I just feel really fortunate. Andy Warhol, who's an artist from my hometown of Pittsburgh, he once said that artists make a mistake in thinking their job is done when they create their art. They said, once you create your art, you need just as much or more creativity to market your art. And so like for us, it's been a lot of audacious ideas, like Clemente becoming a saint, or we captured Champ on our drone. And there's a lot of noise. And so someone at a local newspaper or TV station, they're getting like hundreds and hundreds of people, do a story about me and market my book, or do a story about me and market my film. So it has to be, you have to have creativity in the very story you tell in approaching them. It has to be something that they can see as a great story, not just like a vanity request to market me. So we've been very fortunate in that.
In this area, in the Lake Champlain, Boaga Bay area, well, you need to know that in Boaga Bay, that's where a lot of the eyewitnesses have been, and right where we filmed. And it's very talked about in this area of New York, and also in Vermont, across the lake from us. Vermont even has a Lake Monster baseball team.
Yeah.
And their mascot, one time we were reading the paper, and there was an article and the mascot was talking, and he said, wow, they're even doing a book about me, Lucy and the Lake Monster.
Yeah, the baseball team started pushing us, and
we hadn't even said anything to them.
We hadn't even talked to them. So we've been really fortunate that people talk about it. Also, another good story, getting back to what I said a moment ago about sometimes the story has to be a good story for the press. I think the story of Kelly Kelly gets upset with me when I do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Kelly was a fantastic teacher. She won all kind of awards. Teacher of the year. She doesn't like this. She thinks this is bragging, but the Proverbs say, let another man praise thee and not thy own lips. So I'm the one doing it. But Kelly was such a great teacher. And so she labored 32 years, public school, given her all. I mean, she didn't quit. When she got home, she was doing lesson plans and working. And so like having a teacher have a book and film come out of the story she improvised about her childhood to educate her kids, and this becoming a book and a film, that also was like a really great story.
In a whole different geographical area of the United States. That's down in the Greenville, South Carolina area too.
I think there's subtexts in Lucy and the Lake Monster. One is faith. Okay, the girl having faith that a Champ is there. And also there's one of tolerance. Because early you have the church sort of rebuking her.
Yes.
And then later they come to accept. So I see those elements in the film that I think would be.
I love the way you said that. Thank you.
Now I know you've made a sequel already. I know Emma Pearson played the young girl, right? And
That's
then you have a
correct.
new actress, and all I can remember right now is her first name is Anastasia. Okay.
That's right.
Leodori.
She's
Leodori.
Italian. It's Anastasia Leodori, and she
Yeah.
is such a lovely young woman.
But she's going to be a teenager in this movie, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the story is jumping forward. We have a trilogy in which she's 8 in part 1. In part 2, she's 16. So Anastasia plays her at 16 in the sequel, and she did fantastic. I can't wait for you all to see it. And then in the final third aspect of the trilogy, she's going to be an older adult woman. So we're showing a woman at these different phases of life and how things change. Like even your faith can change. Her relationship to Champ can change a little bit. Like, it's an allegory of faith. So like when I was little and I would read, say, John 14:2, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Well, my little boy mind, I'm picturing a beautiful mansion just behind a cloud, that I can see in the sky, very literal, right? But now I've been on planes and studied space and I haven't seen any houses, resting in those clouds. So now, I think about heaven maybe in a more adult way, like different, physicists say there's over 11 dimensions. Could the kingdom of heaven be maybe another dimension? You start thinking about it differently. So the trilogy and having her at different life phases will show how her understanding of Champ and things, matures and the issues she faces. Like this one's a little bit heavier, would you say, than the first one? Because she's a little bit older. She's a teenager. Some of Papa's demons come out a little bit that he's battled in his past. I don't know, am I saying too much?
Don't give it away. Okay. So
She
there's
has
going to be a third movie too, right? Eventually, you keep saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, will there be books of these, or are just going to make movies?
Yes.
There'll be books
Yes.
also. Okay.
Yes, book and film. We hope to have the book and film out in 2026.
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to mention, you managed to get cameos, whether it's Louis Gossett. Lindsay Lohan amazed me in the Lucy and the Lake Monster. In an independent film, how do you get these celebrities? Linda Carter was one. It may not be the same film, but how do you get celebrities to do this?
Well, it's a great question. I'm currently in an MFA program, Master of Fine Arts and Screenwriting at the David Lynch School of Cinematic Arts, but I hadn't really studied film formally when I started making films. I mean, I did take a couple classes in my hometown at a place called Pittsburgh Filmmakers. In fact, I had a class there in screenwriting, and we studied the Ed Wood film, and it was one of the films we studied with Johnny Depp and we studied that script. We would study different scripts and discuss them. But anyways, other than a class or two, I didn't have much training. But when I was teaching guitar at a college in Los Angeles called Los Angeles Valley College, and they had a film and theater degree that was a 2-year degree in film. So I earned the theater and film degree there. But the head of the film program, Eric Swellstad, he said, I want to give you all an important tip. If you can get some cameos of some well-known actors in your no-budget films, it'll just give you a little bit of a leg up over all these, because with the digital age, so much material, a glut of all these films. It'll help you rise above, but you have to be some creative on a micro budget to get cameos. So in some cases, I had a podcast, and so I'd interviewed a bunch of celebrities. And so I went back to them. I had the thought, well, Brother Billy, what if Brother Billy in Canaanland has a radio show? I could reuse some of those interviews I did with celebrities. And I went to celebrities that I'd interviewed, Cindy Williams, Sally Kirkland, God bless their souls. They both passed
away, haven't they?
Yeah. And there's others, Kathy Garver from Family Affair, Kathy Coleman from Land of the Lost, Ginger Alden, who was Elvis's fiance when he passed, different ones. And I went to them all and I said, I'm making this film on really no budget. And I wondered if I could reuse some of the interview we did. And, but I don't have any money to pay. You'd have to sign a release. And I just literally typed up a very simple 2-sentence release that said, I give Richard permission to use the interview we did in his film. And they all signed it and sent it back.
That's
so
amazing.
I got a ton of cameos just so easy that way. And in this case, Well, in this case, some of them we got literally through Cameo, the site Cameo, where you can actually go
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
yeah, and you can actually go and hire celebrities. Average rate might be a couple $100. So every time I got a few hundred extra dollars, I would go on
I
there.
just learned something. There's a site where you can get cameos from celebrities.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that turned out to be a blessing, and I used to have so much fun going on there and just seeing who was on there and who I could get. And then some of the actors were friends of mine and just did it for me. I worked in my young adult years as a minister, and that reputation followed me when I moved from minister to movie maker, because sometimes people would call me, celebrities that were going through a hard time, and say, "Oh, so-and-so told me that they were able to tell you about their problems and you were a good listener and not judgmental and that you prayed for them," or whatever. So I had quite a few that had trusted me. Very famous people trusting me with their deep, dark secrets. And I don't judge. I have a philosophy that I'm on the witness stand and not the judgment seat. In other words, I share my strength, experience, hope, and faith as a witness, but I'm not on the judgment seat. We're all human. There's a scripture that says, if one's overtaken in a fault, to not judge them, but to gently restore them, considering the fact that you're human as well. So a lot of these celebrities, when they were having major scandals and meltdowns, they would call me up. So I was kind of in a position where I knew some that I could just ask,
Well, I sense that thread in a lot of your movies, what you're talking about. I want to ask Kelly something. How was it different acting as a teacher than it was from your real life experiences in the film? Was there any difference?
Well, it was very similar. I could just be myself.
Uh-huh.
Nice. I would talk to Emma like I would talk to any other student that I would have had. But I will say this is the first time I've acted since high school. I was in my high school play, and when Richard had me do a part too, I was a little nervous about it, but he makes me feel so calm and like it's going to be okay, because I knew if I make a mistake, we could retake it. And
that's what I mean. You had retakes. You don't do that in real life.
Yeah, unless you're being interviewed on live television. That has happened. And there's no retakes. You have to get it right the first time when they say we're on in 10. And,
or
and
in
I say,
theater.
Lord Jesus, please help me.
Yeah, one interview they were counting down 3, 2, 1. I think it was on Fox News or something.
Access Carolina
on the local Fox station. They were counting 3, 2, 1, and we're live. And you see Kelly, help me, Jesus.
I did it right before they hit 1.
That's
right
great.
before 1.
Now, Richard, you have a history of being singing and also with a family. Could you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They were the Jackson 5 of Pittsburgh.
Do you want to hand me? Can music be heard? I don't know.
I don't know. We can try anything. All right.
I'll do a few notes and let me know if you can hear these notes. If it sounds wonky or you can't hear it.
I can hear it.
You can hear those strings?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I wrote I started playing guitar in bars when I was about when I was about 7. I think we're okay. As a boy, I played in bars and on the street to earn money and everything, a boy busker. And but I wrote the song for the movie. We'll sing you a little excerpt. Lake lady on our boat upon the sea, just you, champ, and me. So yeah, the fact I play and write songs and stuff, I'm able to still do that with films because I like to write a song for the different films, Well,
you sing. I've watched about 4 or 5 of your movies the last week or so, and I've noticed a lot of singing. And I noticed doing research that you came from a singing background. Tell us where we can tell our viewers where we can see Lucy and the Lake Monster right now.
Oh, well, it's all over. You can see it free on Amazon. Tubi. I think it's on Tubi now.
I watched it on Tubi, although I wish I'd watched it on Amazon because they have captions. But
you can watch it free, rent, or you can watch it with an ad. But when I watched it here with my parents, and there was only a commercial at the very beginning, and then it was uninterrupted the rest of the time, which I thought was wonderful. Yeah,
it's on Plex and Freevee.
Freevee. Okay.
Yeah, I think probably most watch it on Tubi or Amazon, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're very grateful it's out there, and it's so nice it's out there now.
And there's a website, right, for it?
Yes, LucyandTheLakeMonster.com. So
Right.
just spell out the whole title, LucyandTheLakeMonster.com. There's pages on there about the drone footage at Champ. There's pages on there with all the press articles you could read, or TV. There's just a lot of different things on there. We did different contests for kids. And
We also have a merch page where you
yes.
can buy shirts or
Yeah.
shower curtains, bedspreads, you
And
name
the
it.
Yeah,
book is for sale there, right? Too the book.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, the book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. This is a paperback. There's also a hard copy. It's a few dollars more, but a lot nicer, I think. They
And
last
Walmart.
better.
It's
Walmart,
selling on
yeah.
Walmart online too.
Yeah, so
And the new movie you said is almost done, right?
yeah, Secrets of Lake Champlain. We've been editing. I'm editing the rough cut myself, and then I'm going to turn it over to a better editor than me to polish it. But I have the rough cut I've been working on. We're at about maybe 65 minutes assembled so far, and it'll probably be about 85 minutes. So almost done with the rough cut and ready to hand that over to the next guy.
It's going on. It's
Oh,
going
go
a
on,
lot.
go on.
It's a lot quick. It's going a lot quicker than the first movie did in the post
You
editing.
probably learned from the first movie, right?
Yeah,
How long
because
does post-production usually take?
I tell you, it takes for me usually several years because, there's an old saying that time and money are related. If you have more money, it takes less time. If you have less money, it takes more time. It's kind of like making it ourselves on a modest budget. A lot of times it takes longer. But the first film, I had never even used DaVinci editing, which I needed to use because it was shot with Blackmagic cameras, which are real good cameras. And the DP said we should edit on DaVinci because that's the editing system that works with Blackmagic. And I never used it. So I had a learning curve, and I'm not the most technical person. So that took a while.
And there are sites online when you don't understand something, when you're going through the process, you can refer to people on these sites and they'll kind of walk you through what
Thank
you need
heavens
to.
for YouTube, right?
Oh, I know. Like every time I got stuck, I would on YouTube ask, how do you do blah, blah, blah on DaVinci? And there'd usually be
I
somebody.
don't know how the can opener works. So, I mean, I use YouTube a lot, believe me.
Yeah.
And so, Kelly, I'm going to ask Richard about a few of his earlier films. If you want to offer some insight, if you've seen them, feel free, okay? Is that okay right now?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
I watched Sister Amy.
Uh-huh.
Now, that's the story of Amy Semple McPherson. And what I found interesting about the film is it was shot on a camcorder. And you heavily focused on the face to keep it going continuity-wise. Tell us what it's like making a film on that micro of a
Oh my, people,
process.
there's a saying, if you're ignorant, you can, be creative in a way. And just like, I didn't know, like there's a rule of thumb with no budget films, never make a period piece because it's going to be so expensive. You have to get costumes of that period and cars of that period. And it's easier to just, do a contemporary thing in a few locations. But, I had this passion. I felt like this kinship with Sister Amy. I kept it very interior, so I didn't have to have the expense of all these 1920s cars. And, there was funny low budget aspects to it. Like there's a lovely actress who was Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter in the film,
She's in
Cara
the film,
Chaplin. Yeah, and Cara Chaplin had called me from her estate in Ireland through her, and her agent was calling me, Bud Moss, and said that she'd really like to be in it. And we discussed how her grandfather, Charlie Chaplin, allegedly had a relationship with Sister Amy and rumored even to have had an affair with her. And Cara really wanted to be in it. And she's just a lovely person. And, she was such a in-demand model that she was used to, very well-funded shoots and wardrobe and all that stuff. And I remember she showed up where we were shooting, which was at this church, and asked me to guide her to wardrobe. And I said, well, you didn't bring anything? Because our wardrobe was basically actors find your own costume. And she was taken by surprise. And of course, it's my first film. I didn't know what I was doing really, but my daughter, Karis, this was right after Halloween. My daughter, Karis, was a flapper that year. And I called Karis up, do you still have that 1920s costume? Yeah, and she drove it down, and it fit Cara, and that was wardrobe.
These are interesting anecdotes of how to make film. You also managed to get Rance Howard. How was that?
Oh, yeah. That was amazing. I feel so lucky because here's people from two of Hollywood's royal families called me. They both called me, Cara and Rance, And the way that happened, quite frankly, was a little bit of BS. And I'm not saying Bible study for BS, but a little bit of bull bleepy that I did at the Variety and Hollywood Reporter offices. I was trying to get some, backing. I'd never made a film. And I noticed they had these production listings at the time where they would list in the back of Variety and Hollywood Reporter, these films are being shot. And a lot of actors would look at that and pitch themselves for jobs. So I guess I did a little bit of an Elmer Gantry on Hollywood Reporter and Variety, because I went in there and said, I'm shooting this, period piece epic film on Amy Semple McPherson and blah, blah, blah. And, talked my way into sitting down with their secretary who took this to put in their production listings. And she would ask me, who's your assistant director? Who's your wardrobe head? Who is your AD? Who is your blah, blah, gaffer? Who is your, and you have to come up with all these names. Well, basically it was me and, my brother and a guy from church, 3 of us or something. So she would ask me names and I would just like say names like there were some kids I was friends with in grade school. Paul Baginski was my best friend. They'd be like,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Who's your head of post-production? Paul Baginski, and when my family saw this, it was like all my childhood friends and high school friends, and they were just laughing. Like I would just make up names. There's a wrestler, Italian wrestler, like I liked as a kid, Dominic DeNucci. Well, Dominic DeNucci was, head of wardrobe or something, So basically with all these kind of fake names, it looked like this, big film. So that's how Rance Howard called me, and Kara Chaplin both saw it in the trades and called me. And Rance, at the time of this, I was being stalked by desperate actors that kind of scared me. Like, I was doing my business sitting on the toilet in a restroom somewhere, and some guy slipped his headshot under the door. And then another guy showed up at about 1 a.m. rapping on my apartment window and trying to give me his headshot. So I have some PTSD from some past stalker type stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was like really getting paranoid now. Like I better not open my door. There's a lot of, desperate people out there. And so this guy Rance kept calling, and all he would say is, he had this real sweet voice. He would say, "Hi, this is Rance and Rance Howard, and I'm really interested in being your sister Amy film. I remember her as a boy in Oklahoma, coming through with the tent revival and blah, blah, blah." And I was ignoring him. He's like, "I'd like to take you to coffee." Well, I just had a couple experiences with some very strange actors pursuing me. So I was ignoring him. And then I had a dream. I literally had a dream, and I saw Rance Howard in the dream and all these films he'd been in, including Ed Wood. Like I had this dream of the scene where he's in Ed Wood and playing McCoy, and he said, "The film ends with a big explosion." And Johnny Depp as Ed Wood says, "No, it doesn't. It does now." But all of a sudden, like somehow my subconscious, I was running a reel, like his highlight reel, and I woke up like, I looked and was like, oh my God, this is Rance Howard. He has like hundreds of films to his credit. He's Ron Howard's father. So I called him up and said, yeah, let's meet for coffee. And Rance was a big part of me getting it finished, because he said, "Could I bring your script?" My script at that time.
Tell him this.
Yeah. Why don't you tell him? I've been talking too long.
No, you go ahead. I love this.
Well, my script at this point, it wasn't even like in script form. It was this big shoebox. And I would get little fragments of ideas. So they were like napkins and 3x5 cards.
Scraps.
Like I might have a scrap of paper that says, "Film opens on 7 women in blue capes walking at the ocean singing 'Shall We Gather at the River.'" It might be just something like that. Or it might be, "Line for Amy, I'm not like other women, but I still am a woman." Just there'd be little fragments.
Hundreds of them.
Like I had like 300 of these pieces of paper, and I dumped it on the table and saw Rance, and he's so sweet. He says, he goes, "This is really good, Richard. I like to write by hand too on paper, but I think you're going to have to sit at a computer or typewriter and type this into an actual script." Like he had every reason so many times to say, "This guy, I'm not working with this guy." In fact, I had a great moment of self-doubt. And right the first day Rance was supposed to shoot, I called him up in a panic, a total anxiety attack. And this is what I said to him. I'm embarrassed to say. I don't know if I have to bleep this out, but I said, "Rance, it's Richard. I know we're supposed to shoot tomorrow, but you know what? The people that promised to fund me, it's all fallen through. I have no money. I'm making this on a cheap drugstore camcorder, and I said, my friend Jeff got me a couple camcorders, and I said, you have a really good reputation in this town, and I just don't want to hurt you by putting you in this film, because this film is going to probably turn out to be a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's what I said.
Okay.
I said,
That's okay.
yeah, and I said, it's going to be a piece of shit. And I was like, and it was like he knew. He just said, Richard, in the creative process, we all have fear and self-doubt. And he said, even my son, as successful as he is, he has moments like that. And he said, I believe in you. I know you've never made a film, and I know your script was, a bunch of pieces of napkins with ideas, and I know you're scared and you don't have any money. And he said, I'll help pay for some stuff. And he said, I'm doing this because I believe in you. And he said, you have talent to write and act and direct, and I see that in you. And I see your heart. And I want to tell you something, Richard. I've been in hundreds of films, and a lot of times I just, you get the paycheck, but it's maybe a few lines, and it's not that great. But as an actor, you wrote such a great part for me. And I even wrote it with him in mind. Once I knew he wanted to do it, I started modifying the dialogue to kind of fit him. And he said, when you write something that just fits an actor like a glove, that's really well written, we as actors will want to pay you to do it. I mean, it's like, you've given me such a good part, and I believe in you. And he said, if you don't want me to come, I won't come, but I'd really like to go up to Bakersfield tomorrow. It was about a 2-hour drive with you. And it was like he talked me through moments like that. So I feel very, very lucky. I mean, how many people on their first film have Ron Howard's dad and Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter call them out of the blue and say they want to work? And I had no credits, no money. I mean, I feel like I've been very, very lucky.
It seems like a wonderful experience. He almost was like a mentor. I think he recently passed away, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Let's go to a movie. We were both born in 1963. You're about 6 months
Oh.
older than me. But I grew up going to California Angels games. I mean, I must have gone to 100. You went to Pittsburgh games, right?
Yeah.
The Pirates.
Yeah. Yes.
A movie about Roberto Clemente I found interesting because I had no idea he played as early as the early 1950s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that film, because it dealt more with his personal life, battles against racism, his
Yes.
love life, and his effort to help people. Tell us more about that movie.
Yeah, I was 9 when he passed, and I cried so hard. I loved him so much. When I played baseball and Little League and stuff, he had a neck and back injury, so he'd come to the plate and he'd do this weird gyro. And it's funny, we have a home movie, me at a plate in a Little League game, and before I step in, I'm doing all this, and I don't have to do this. I'm just trying to act like Roberto Clemente, basically. But I just idolized him, and he died in such a beautiful, humane act of trying to help these earthquake victims in Nicaragua that the dictator there was not letting the food and medical supplies get to the people. And so as a boy, I felt like he showed us how to live in a Christ-like way. There's a scripture that's a verse for the movie, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his friends. And he was doing that. He went to hospitals, and every town he was in, he would visit the children's hospitals. He was just such a beautiful player. He played with so much grace. He would do this basket catch. Willie Mays did it too, where you kind of catch the ball like that instead of properly like that. And of course, I would do that as a kid, and the coach would yell at you, and you're not Roberto Clemente. Catch the ball the right way, And his arm just. I remember a young girl helping me edit Mary Chin. She was about 20. And I was telling Mary, he'd catch the ball at the wall and then fire a perfect strike to the plate and get someone out trying to tag from third. And I remember she said, Richard, I know that you love him, but you're really exaggerating. Nobody catches the ball at the outfield wall and throws a perfect strike to the plate and gets someone out. You've kind of mythologized him and exaggerated this a bit. And then I got the footage of him doing it, from the 1971 series. And Mary was like, you weren't lying. I mean, he was just
He was a tremendous ball player. I enjoyed some of that, and he had his 3000th hit too. How do you get that? Do you have to get rights for it and everything like that put in the film?
Well, we did it through our nonprofit, and sometimes if you go through a nonprofit, you get a break on some of that because there's a legal what are they called? Fair use.
Fair use,
Like
yeah.
using educational purposes. Like we went into a lot of schools and teachers. We had once again, Kelly's a great teacher, and other teachers. I had a friend, Scott, who's a teacher, and got us in high schools. And so a lot of times if you do something through a nonprofit and you demonstrate a fair use, which at the end of the film, there's a real long legal thing about how we used it in an educational
Actually,
way.
I saw that. That's why I brought the question up.
Yeah. So that's kind of a break. It's a debated point of law, like John Lennon's widow, Yoko, recently sued a indie filmmaker who used one of John Lennon's songs. It might have been Imagine, but I'm not sure, in a similar way. And she brought suit against him, wanting money from him, quite a bit of money from him, because he didn't, pay all the rights for it the way like a big studio would. And she lost the case. He demonstrated fair use. There's an attorney I had on my podcast. I can't remember his name, but he's kind of the expert in how indie films can use fair use so they don't have to pay as much money. I forget his name, Michael something or other. I have to look it up, but he wrote a few books on it.
Well, quickly, you mentioned earlier that there was an effort to get Clemente canonized.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Has that gone anywhere yet, or is it just sort of stalling right now?
Right to the new pope.
Oh, yeah. What's happened was I wrote to that idea dropped on me. I was just kind of like praying and meditating, and the idea popped out of nowhere. And I learned a trick in marketing, which is I learned it from a guy that managed Alice Cooper, the rock star. I think his name was it Shep Gordon? Might have been his name. But he would get crazy outside the box ideas to market Alice Cooper, but he always would go with them because he said that's those crazy outside the box ideas that can be genius in marketing. And so I had this idea, like our film shows his faith. And so I wrote to the Pope in both. I used Google Translate and talked to some Italian friends and Spanish friends. So I wrote him in both Spanish and Italian, because of course the Pope's in Italy, but also he was that Pope was Latin American. Was it Pope Francis, I think?
Yeah, Francis.
Yeah, Francis, yeah. And lo and behold, I started getting letters back from what was called the Apostolic Nunciatore, which is like his representative. And so it picked up steam as a story. Will the Pope canonize Clemente? And they were very positive about it. But then they directed me to the Archbishop of Puerto Rico. They said it has to start where he died, and his plane went down off San Juan. The Archbishop of Puerto Rico was stuck on this one thing, and I was a little frustrated with this. He was stuck on this thing and saying, Clemente was a Baptist. And so he went to a Baptist church here. And so he wasn't totally Catholic. So I actually did the research and presented to him that Clemente was baptized in the Catholic Church in Puerto Rico, married in the Catholic Church in San Juan, also had his memorial through the Catholic Church. And I explained to him, having contact with the family, some of the family members through some of the people working with me, we learned that his Roberto went to both churches, Catholic and Baptist, because I think his father was Melchior was Catholic and his mother was Baptist. So Clemente might go to a Bible study one night at the Baptist church, but then go to Mass with the other parent on. So
well, things bog down in bureaucracy, unfortunately, don't they?
Exactly, yeah. And he just was so stuck on this. And I said, Vatican II said that, we're all brethren, and this is commendable that he was able to see Christ in different churches, but he wasn't buying it. It was like, no, he was Baptist, blah, blah, blah. And then I went back to the Pope, and it kind of died out a bit. Now I have written to the new Pope. We'll see what happens. There's some other groups that canonize saints, some other churches that are like splinter churches, Orthodox churches and stuff. So I haven't given up on that idea. But my Hollywood friends just say, who's your effing publicist? Because they said that gave my Clemente film like worldwide attention. But I really feel like he's a saint in God's eyes, and by the grace of God, by the way he lived his life, whether they recognize it or not,
Well, I would just add before we move on that I thought the gentleman who's still searching for Clemente's body was very interesting in the film. And also I enjoyed your performance as a sports writer.
Oh, thank you.
I want to talk about Canaan Land. and that's basically your Elmer Gantry story, right?
Yes,
Now,
yes,
one thing
yeah.
I'll say is you kind of, to some extent, you redeem your character at the end of Canaan Land. Many people think Elmer Gantry is redeemed in the movie, but the movie only deals with Sharon Falconer. In fact,
Yeah.
completely misrepresents Lulu, and Elmer Gantry never repents in the book.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny because there was so much liberties for someone like you that's read the novel. It's so different from the film. I was given the rights to perform it as a play.
I read that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I met with a guy named Paul Brodsky, who was the executor of the Richard Brooks estate, who wrote and directed the film, and he was a wonderful man. He was very generous. In fact, he brought the Oscar from the film and had me hold the Oscar at performances of the play and stuff. But yeah, it's so different. It's interesting. The writing's ambivalent in the way I've noticed the ending people interpret it different ways. Like at the end, he quotes Corinthians about when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things, and he kind of walks away. So my atheist friends interpret the ending as.
But that's the movie, though. That's the movie.
The Burt Lancaster version, yeah. So my atheist friends say Burt Lancaster's basically saying religion is for less enlightened people and more childish people. But when you become a man and you mature, you realize I
didn't see it that way, but yeah.
Yeah. But I, as a person of faith, when I saw it as a beautiful quotation of scripture, and that he's, going on from that now. He's no longer going to be the religious con man. So did you have a preference to the novel to the book? I mean, to the movie?
Oh, I prefer the novel far more than the movie. I admire the movie. It's very well made. Okay. Lancaster is great, but it doesn't really tell the story of Elmer Gantry. I mean, it goes.
And the novel has these twists that we don't see in the movie. Like he gets into the whole new thought kind of movement.
Afterwards, but he eventually becomes a very successful preacher. I think it's the Presbyterian faith. I can't remember which one he moves on to, but he doesn't really change in the book.
No.
And so when I saw the movie Canaan Land, it almost seemed like it was half cinema verite documentary, and then half, talking about half more of a conventional movie too. It went back and forth, but it seemed like something very personal. You probably really got into that movie, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. For me, like the whole thing was really personable. The whole story helped me process my own experience as a preacher. I had a popular radio show and I resigned it at the height of its popularity. And I actually signed off on my last show and I sang, I'm on my way up to Canaan. And I actually sang the Elmer Gantry song when I signed off my ministry on the radio. And I related to, the film just captured me so much. And it was all the film was, and the novel were somewhat inspired by Amy Semple McPherson. So it's interesting that
Sarah Sunday was inspired by, was sort of Amy Semple McPherson. Okay.
Yeah. And that was a lot of the inspiration for Sinclair Lewis, because when he wrote the novel in 1927 was the year that Amy had her famous morals trial, where she vanished at Venice Beach, and she claimed she was kidnapped. However, the DA believed that was a cover story for her to have an affair.
Yeah.
It's in love with a married man that ran a radio station named Kenneth Ormiston. And of course, her church, the Foursquare Gospel Church she founded, said that, she was kidnapped. That's a lie. But the whole scandal aspect is quite fascinating.
Well, that was a really good movie. I'll have to find your novel and read it. Okay.
Thank you. Canaan Land, I wrote it as a novel. I'm really proud of the novel because I was able to put background into it that you can't show in the film.
Yeah, definitely. Kelly, have you ever seen Kelton's Dark Corner?
I have not.
Okay. Richard and I have a mutual friend named Al Dashna. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she knows Al because he was in our Lucy sequel.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
This summer, and he had to be taken to the hospital because he had to have a quadruple.
I remember that. Yeah, that was. Yeah. He's just got. In fact, we postponed an interview with Al because he was still recovering from it at one point.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful, wonderful person. We were so sad when that happened. We had to do a lot of rewriting because his character was there one day, and then the next day he wasn't
there anymore. Well, I'm an Ed Wood file. Okay.
Me too.
Yeah, we both are, right, Richard? And so there's a guy named Paul Marco who is Kelton the cop in these movies.
Yes.
And in my opinion, Paul Marco was a very eccentric guy who got a bad rap late in his life. All right, people were always trashing the poor guy. Okay,
Yeah.
and it seems like that's just unfair. And so I'm very, very grateful that Al and a guy named Vasily Shumov got
Yes.
together and gave Paul Marco some respect. Made these
Yes.
Kelton Star
Yeah.
Corner film noir shows. I guess there are 4 of them, right? And Richard, you're in the 4th. But I can't make heads or tails out of what they are. All right. I mean, I find them entertaining, but I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they're talking about finding affordable housing for zombies in that movie or something. All right, at one point, and then you're trying to take down Kelton at the end. And poor Kelton, he's in his 80s. He didn't have much longer to live. So
Yeah.
what was your experience working on that last one?
Well, I love Paul Marco. I think he's a real through line in what they call the trilogy of to me, the great Ed Wood films that were like a trilogy that we all of us that love Ed Wood love. Plan 9, Night of the Ghouls, Bride of the Monster. I think he's in all 3.
He is.
And he has this, to me, a very lovable comedic quality, like like that same kind of thing of like a Lou Costello or a Barney Fife, Don Knotts, of that bumbling cop type of persona. Yeah. And I just think he was a really sweet man. He was a costumer late in his life, working a wardrobe on some bigger films. But and he had his own fan club, and he I think he even did some records as Kelton the Cop. So for me to have any tie to the Ed Wood legacy was so fun, and I was really excited about it. Everybody just about that helped me with my part has passed on it. I had a real dear friend, Richard, that did some of the pictures of me as the zombie mayor, and he did the makeup and stuff. And I recently was at his memorial and got up to talk about how much I loved him along with others. So it was a different experience in that it was done in a different way than most films. Like, you have a lot of still images and narration. What's interesting, I thought about, is like, I worked as a missionary in a kind of a kids ministry for a few years called Child Evangelism Fellowship. And it's such an older ministry that they have very old school ways of doing things. So like when they would tell these stories, they had these flannel graph images, like say Jesus feeding the 5,000 or something, and you would hold up that image and you would have some narration for several minutes, and you'd flip to the next flannel graph page and it would be a still image and you would talk. And it was slower. It was more for the radio age. And like Kelly's mother actually likes to watch things on YouTube where they will have a still image. And like to someone in the MTV age, they would be like, what is this? It's a still picture and someone just talking. But she loves these stories where there'll be a picture of a dog on the screen for a minute, and it talks about
for 30 minutes. It'll be the same picture for the entire story.
Yeah, and it'll drive people crazy. But I thought about it, she grew up in an era where you listened to the radio, and so a lot of the film, it struck me as very different, in that it was almost like I think they even showed it in
radio
clubs.
Broadcast, right?
Yeah. It's almost like you did a great show, Doug, on the final curtain on the Ed Wood short. Thanks. And you pointed this out very astutely, that that film's kind of different to, like, if you got some Gen Z person, like, I've actually heard young people say, I don't want to watch that film. It's made in black and white. I don't watch black and white. Like, they're so spoiled by what they're used to. But I love vintage stuff. I love black and white films. Final Curtain with Dudley Manlove does the narration, but it's pretty much, the actors are just like, they don't have dialogue. So it struck me as odd in that kind of a sense, that, you're not learning all these lines. You're just kind of doing narration and doing a lot of stills of the character. I mean, did it strike you different in that way?
I saw talent in that show. Okay. There's definite talent. I think maybe you could draw some parallels to Final Curtain, except Final Curtain is more tightly constructed to some degree. There were like things that I'm not criticizing, but they seem like non sequiturs in the movie. But it did all gel together. And I guess we'll never see any more because of Russia's aggression toward Ukraine. I don't know if this movie's going to get
Oh,
much
oh yeah.
play from now on. But I wanted to mention that because I just recently bought a Night of the Ghouls Blu-ray under Revenge of the Dead, and Kelton's Dark
Oh,
Corner is on that as an extra. I don't know if you're aware of that.
really?
Yes,
Wow, I didn't
yes.
even know that. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
and I'm just glad it was on YouTube. Well, Kelly, I'm going to pick up Lucy and the Lake Monster and see if I can get my wife to read it in her third grade class in
Oh,
Ogden,
that
Utah. We'll give it a shot. But
And if they ever want us to visit the class in like a Zoom meet, we visited a lot of classrooms of kids, and like the teacher will have them read the book, and then they ask us questions. And I got to tell you, the best questions we've had, even more than film festivals, is these kids. They ask the question. Some of these third and fourth grade
Yeah.
kids at these classrooms.
They want to know what's going to happen next, and they have all these things that they think's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the questions these kids come up with are just so cute, you
that
know.
is great. That is great.
Yeah.
What was I'll have to ask her about that. I hadn't thought of that, but that's not a bad idea to have people talk about it.
Are you in? Where are you located?
Ogden, Utah. It's about
Oh,
it's
okay,
about
great.
40 miles from north of Salt Lake City.
Yes, a lot of the great westerns were shot in Utah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
Even some low budget ones.
yeah, the Osmonds, I believe, had. I know they had a studio in Provo. I thought did they have a studio in Ogden also?
They're originally
Do you know?
from Ogden. Whether they had a studio, I'm
what I
not
thought.
sure.
Yeah, I thought they were from
There are
Ogden.
some
Yeah.
movies that Jimmy Osmond made. You ever heard of the Great Brain stories? You probably have. Kelly.
Oh,
Great.
Great
I was a
Brain.
big fan. I was a big fan of the
Well,
Osmonds.
I read every Great Brain, but they made a Great Brain movie, and
Yeah.
for some reason it's in legal hell. But so I don't think it ever had a DVD release. But
Oh.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed those stories. I enjoyed. Oh, what were they? Encyclopedia? No, yeah, was it Encyclopedia Brown? I mean, I read all these.
She was great at pushing those kind of books on her kids through the Scholastic
Yeah.
books.
Yeah, I love the Scholastic Book Club. I had my kids order almost monthly. They always ordered, and they were so excited when the box came to the classroom. We got to pass out the books.
I remember
And
that.
is the teacher, whenever the kids purchase things, the teachers get bonus points, and so we can buy class sets free for our classroom. So I have this humongous classroom library for my
That's
students.
fantastic.
They look at all those kind of books and the book series, the box book series they used to like, because when they finish one, they can just go to the next one.
Exactly. You know what? My kids are all grown now. Our kids are all grown now, but they used to get a book from Dolly Parton every month.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Dolly is so generous. Yeah.
Well,
That's
listen, I'm going to have to do a little spiel here. We're Plan 9 Crunch, and you can find us on YouTube. Give us a subscribe. It doesn't cost any money. We also have a blog called plan9crunch.com, which has been going on since 2008. And my daughter and sometimes me will do stuff on TikTok, which I don't
Great.
fully understand, but we have a page on TikTok. And you can go to
That's-
Facebook, which is Plan 9 Crunch Podcast and Blog, and you can like us there. And so we're having a lot of fun, and we appreciate both of you being on today. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half, and it's a ton of fun. We're not making any money, I guarantee you that. But we're having a lot of fun. And so the last thing I'm going to say, as we say all the time, is that's a wrap.